It is 9 o'clock and it is time for your live extended weather update here on 11Alive plus the 24/7 weather channel. So we are tracking a cold snap that we're in the middle of on this first day of spring, and it's going to last a little bit longer before we can get out of it, but a cold night ahead. This is our first full night of spring, and we're tracking a spring freeze and in some cases just a spring frost. But overnight tonight, tomorrow morning, between 3 and 10 o'clock, we'll see those low temperatures getting down between 28 and 35 degrees. So you want to dress warm out the door tomorrow morning. We're talking about the big coats and big jackets you probably thought you might be just about done with, but we're not quite done with them. And also maybe those more sensitive plants tonight. Let's say you have a potted plant of basil or something that doesn't tolerate the cold as easily. Bring it in the garage, bring it inside if you can, or cover it up with a sheet or a frost cloth. There could be a little bit of patchy frost, but even though these temperatures may be kind of shocking to the eyes, we had really gusty winds today and a little bit of a breeze still out there now. And if we don't see those winds subside altogether, we're just not going to see frost developing. So I'm not confident that we'll see widespread frost, but these frost advisories and freeze warnings are issued by the National Weather Service for agricultural purposes. So it's to alert farmers and the agriculture industry, that we do have temperatures getting down that cold so they can protect those crops. If you didn't know, agriculture is Georgia's biggest driver of our economy. It drives in more than, I think it's $50 billion each and every year for the state. It's a lot of money. So in the purple color, these are freeze warnings in northwest Georgia. It does include Cherokee, Cobb, Douglas, Carroll County, and also Heard County and points north and west of that. In the blue color, these are frost advisories where temperatures may not get down to the freezing mark, but it's still going to be cold tomorrow morning. And you notice these colors on the map don't include the North Georgia mountains, and that's because the growing season has not started there. Once we get to April 15th, they'll turn the growing season on there, so to speak. And then if the temperatures did get down to that frost or freeze territory, then they would issue those frost advisories and freeze warnings. But it will be cold either way you spin it tomorrow morning across all of North Georgia, our first full morning of spring. Down to a low of 35 in Atlanta. Outlying suburbs around the metro, if you live near a lot of trees and less concrete, asphalt, and buildings, you could get down to the freezing mark tomorrow morning. West Georgia, coldest spots on the map across the metro, down to the low 30s. And then there will be a hard freeze across the North Georgia Mountains territory where we could see some mid and upper 20s showing up. Now, I know you felt the difference outside today. The front was deceptive because it pushed out early this morning. There was some sunshine. It was breezy, but not too bad outside at like 10 o'clock. And then the clouds moved in, and those clouds really added to that chill factor. And what the atmosphere has been trying to do is squeeze out enough moisture for a couple of sprinkles. That's what radar is trying to pick up on, but we've had a lot of dry air at the ground, so it's hard for a lot of this to actually reach the ground. But speaking of that cold air and the cloud cover and everything, this was a camera from one of our 11Alive Weather Impact team members on Facebook today, Mary up in Mineral Bluff. And what I want you to look at, look how kind of gray and murky it is in the distance. Mary was pointing out that there were some snow flurries in the highest elevations up in the North Georgia mountains. And yes, we talked about that yesterday on air, and those will all subside overnight tonight as the skies clear and the temperatures really tumble down from the 40s into the 30s. But right now it is 9 o'clock in Atlanta and we're currently 45 degrees. That's cold, especially when you consider yesterday's high was 79. So it's a big shock to the system today. Those numbers are already down in the 30s up across Blairsville and Clayton in the North Georgia mountains. 41 right now in Carrollton, 46 in Covington, and 47 in Athens. We still have really howling winds out there. Wind gust at the airport in Atlanta is 39 miles per hour. And these gusty winds are adding that wind chill effect outside. So I mentioned this on the air at 6 o'clock today, how these wind chills will be dropping area wide into the 30s by 10 o'clock tonight. And that's exactly where they're going. It's 37 right now in Atlanta, 32 in Canton, 35 the wind chill in Duluth, and 31 in Blairsville. So this is our live weather update at 9 o'clock tonight. If you're watching us on replay, that's not actually what your actual numbers are, but you can see all of that in the live radar on 24/7 weather. All right. forecast track for the feels like temperatures in the morning will drop down below freezing. Doesn't matter if you're in the frost advisory, freeze warning, or just not in any of them. It's going to be cold. The wind chills will be down in the upper 20s and low 30s in the metro, and North Georgia mountains wind chills down to the low 20s. So very cold start in the morning. But the beautiful thing about springtime that I like to say is that we've got a higher sun angle in the sky. That's a stronger March sunshine, and that can help to warm us up quicker when we have sunny skies like we will on Friday. Cold start in the morning, quick climb and ascend through the 40s. By 1 o'clock, we're at 53, and then look at that 60s coming for the afternoon, forecasting a high of 65 in Atlanta. Often when we see dry air, sunshine, and a northwest breeze, our temperatures have been spiking a lot above the model. So I know this planner shows you 62 at 5 o'clock. We feel we could hit 65 tomorrow afternoon. That's what you'll see in our 7-day forecast. All right, low temperatures though. Is this unusual for us to see temperatures this cold this time of year? No, it's actually not. Our average low, March 21st, is about 55 degrees. And we can see frosts and freezes in Atlanta even into April. So this is a look. Today's the first day of spring, so I wanted to show you how the temperatures trend in the mornings over the springtime, ending with May 30th heading into June. That average low up to 64 degrees. So can you go ahead and plant things? The short answer, you can, but if they're not very tolerant of cold temperatures, you probably want to wait a little bit longer. Here's why. Our average last spring in Atlanta is March 21st. What does that mean, average last spring? Well, it means we took 30 years of data, which is called our climate norms, from 1991 to 2020. We averaged that last spring together, the last freeze rather in the spring, and it's March 21st. An average though, you gotta take all the numbers and average them together. We have some freezes that are a lot later than that, some freezes that are a lot earlier than that. So that's the average. So we actually like to look further and say, okay, well, how late is it usually our last freeze or frost in Atlanta? And we found that the latest ever last freeze in Atlanta was April 25th, but look at the year of that, 1910. I've been talking about this for a couple of days. 1910 was before the Industrial Revolution. It was before we had all the city skyscrapers, the cars on the roads, the asphalt, the concrete, all that, okay? So it's pretty unrealistic for us to have a freeze April 25th of 2025. But we have seen in the last 30 years a spring freeze in Atlanta in the month of April. So we always say it's the best practice to wait until tax day, but really, if you live in the city, if you wait past that first weekend of April, you're probably okay. All right, what about high temperatures? Today's the first day of spring. Average high temperature today is up to 67. You notice as we get to April 1st, it goes up to 70. May 1st, it goes up to 79 degrees. And then by the time we turn that calendar page to meteorological summer in June, our average high is up to 84 degrees. So those numbers go up for the averages, and that means we also see more warmer days as the days go on. All right, what about us getting out of this deep freeze? Not deep freeze, but temporary cold snap. Tomorrow, it's going to be comfortably cool outside by the afternoon. It's a cold start in the morning, but by the afternoon, we're up to 65. Saturday and Sunday, beautiful looking weekend, but with the temperatures warming and dry weather and a little bit of a breeze, there's another elevated risk of fires over the weekend. But temperatures warm up, 70 Saturday, 76 on Sunday. We take a little step back Monday, tracking some rain with our next cold front, but behind that next cold front, there's not a sharp drop off in the temperatures the same way that we just saw a sharp drop off between yesterday and today. So I don't have any highs in the 50s in the forecast over the next week. You might have felt it outside, especially yesterday, or seen it. Did you see the yellow pollen covering everything? I posted a photo on my Facebook page yesterday afternoon. You can find me at Melissa Nord WX of that yellow pine pollen coating some of the cars in our parking lot here at 11Alive. You probably noticed outside over the last day as well that yellow pollen coating everything. That's pine pollen. That's actually not normally an irritant for us because the particles are so big that it doesn't get through all of our nice filtration system in our noses. But the pollen count today, 1551, was our first extremely high pollen count of 2025. Some years we see them a little earlier. Some years it takes until the last week of March. This is somewhere near south or of average. But we had extremely high count for the tree pollen. Pine, that's the first contributor. Oak, sweet gum, hackberry, and birch are those main contributors. And we're not done with extremely high pollen counts yet to go. Okay, this is the calendar which shows you it's our first one. We've had 5 high days so far, a lot of moderate days based on cooler temperatures at times, some rain knocking the pollen count down. To see those higher numbers, we need everything, of course, pollinating, but we also need a breeze to carry those pollen grains to the rotorod machine, which collects the pollen grains, and then they count those pollen grains by what they look like under a microscope, and then they figure out in a math equation how many of them are actually in a cubic meter of air. But that's all done by Atlanta Allergy and Asthma, who gives us our pollen counts each and every day. Pollen season in North Georgia is at its worst during tree pollen season from late March through the first half of April. We usually peak around April 1st or so. We typically see 12 to 13 days in the extremely high range. I went through 10 years of data and kind of averaged it, but they have data dating back decades, and our new normal in the last decade is about 12 to 13 days in that extremely high range. Some years we'll get 15 or 16 days. Some years we may only have 9 or so, but we've got more to come. Today was just day number 1 in that extremely high range. And how high does the pollen count go? You may be surprised to know that we every year pretty much average 3 days with that pollen count above 4,000. That's a lot. Any day that's in that high to extremely high range, if you're a pollen sufferer, or if the right tree pollen is in the air too much, it's a bad day for you. And you might be also interested to know that if you notice that you were starting a little bit of that itchiness and sneezing in February this year, it's actually not just you. It is becoming more common. We're seeing the freeze-free days growing across the country. Okay, growing. That means we're seeing a longer stretch of days without a freeze, and that means a longer growing season. This map from Climate Central, if you want to see it a little closer, we have a breakout on 11alive.com that I published yesterday with a story, but all of these green dots represent a city with a change in the positive of freeze-free days since 1970. Some of those highest growths were in the West Coast, where they saw in Reno, Nevada, actually saw, I think, a growth of like 60 days since 1970. But Atlanta, this is our number per year on average of freeze-free days. And we've seen a growth of 36 days since 1970. Part of that trend is because our entire climate is warming. But part of the trend in cities like Atlanta is because of the vast urban development. We've got a lot more buildings, concrete, asphalt, less green space. But why am I talking about the concrete and the asphalt? It's because the urban heat island effect. That stuff re-emits and radiates the heat at night, so it kind of traps it in. And why does that matter? It means it's harder for us to get a late season freeze in the city versus if you're out in Marietta or you're out in Duluth. It's a lot harder in the city now than it was in 1970 because of the vast amount of growth inside the center of our city. So I'm telling you that because yes, as a whole, as you see on the map, we've got a lot of growth in terms of our freeze-free days, but if you look at a city like Atlanta, 36, that's a whole month longer of our freeze-free days, our pollen season, essentially, the growing season in Atlanta since 1970, so 54 years ago. And part of that is also, I think, because of the growth of our city. I mean, 1970, Atlanta looked nothing like it does today. Even in 2005, it looked nothing like it does today. Am I right? Especially Midtown. All right. Let's talk about your weekend. Speaking of pollen count's probably going to go back up again over the weekend because we've got warm weather and we are expecting breezy winds. 70 that high temperature Saturday, Little chilly start in the morning, 42 degrees that low. For Sunday, 76. Oh, it's going to feel nice outside. We will have some clouds building in on Sunday, and that's ahead of our next chance of rain. And I want to show you this and talk about this a little bit because this will impact your morning commute on Monday. Here's the European model, and this is showing you Sunday night, evening, finishing up your weekend. Still dry outside, still warm, still breezy. But here comes the next cold front lurking to our north and west. That will move in after midnight, bringing in some showers, maybe some isolated thunderstorms. And by the time we get into the morning commute on Monday, that rain's moving into Atlanta, and it's going to stick with us for a good portion of the morning. I think the rain will largely clear for the afternoon, but what we'll be watching is we're getting warm in advance of it. Can we tap into a little bit of energy and produce some thunderstorms? Now, the dynamics, kind of the wind setup with this system, where we get a lot more upward motion, we'll call it that. It's a lot more favorable north and west of us. This is the outlook from the Storm Prediction Center showing a 15% chance of severe weather from Dallas, Texas through Louisiana, up through Memphis, Nashville, even to southern Kentucky. And that is the equivalency of a slight risk of severe weather. But you notice they've also included northwest Georgia in this 15%. This is really going to be contingent upon what these storms look like upstream before they get to us, because we do expect a weakening trend coming into North Georgia. We're not going to have the same favorable dynamics as what they're going to have there, but it's something we're going to be watching here over the next couple of days. I don't want you to be caught off guard by thunderstorms Sunday night and Monday, but as of now, we're not seeing in the model something that's standing out to us like, oh, we could really see severe weather. I think it's more going to be a problem there through the mid-south, but it's something we'll be watching the next couple of days. If you're traveling over the weekend, I know we're starting spring break season. We've got a storm system on Friday pushing up through the mid-Atlantic, or rather the northeast and New England. Pretty quiet weather across the southeast, and that temperature in Dallas warming up to 80. One thing I do want to point out is you see a lot of these areas in sunshine. We're actually battling high fire weather, critical fire weather across parts of the southern plains and also the Four Corners as we head through the day on Friday. There is a system pushing on the coast of the Pacific Northwest. That'll bring some rain to Seattle and those higher elevations. It's just March. It's very common for them to see snow this time of year, and we get good pushes of moisture coming in off the west coast. We'll go into Saturday. You can see that system pushing further inland in through Idaho into Montana as well. A little bit of snow in the front range of the Rockies. Gusty winds, again, critical fire weather down there. And then for us here on Saturday, 70, but we bring in a little bit of a breeze, the air's dry, the ground's drying out, elevated fire danger. By Sunday, here's the storm system now getting east of the Rockies, and that'll be pushing across the Midwest. Now, in advance of it arriving here, there will be some showers and even some thunderstorms breaking out late in the day, but for us on Sunday, it's largely going to be dry and warm outside. So if you're traveling, there will be some messy weather. Look at that rain-snow mix in Minneapolis. Some of that rain-snow mix gets into the UP of Michigan and even the Mitt and the Thumb. But here in Atlanta, we'll be dry on Sunday, tracking that rain coming in for first thing on Monday morning. I will show you the 7-day forecast as we close things out here. Very long extended 24/7 weather impact update for you. We've got a cold start tomorrow morning, tracking nice conditions over the weekend, warming things up, but fire danger is increasing. So I know it's pretty outside. I do not recommend outdoor burning over the weekend because any spark that ignites could spread quickly. But otherwise, enjoy those 70s over the weekend. 50% chance of showers and even some isolated thunderstorms on Monday morning. And then next week beyond that, no big drop down in the temperatures. We're expecting more highs in the 70s for next week. All right, that is going to do it here for our 9 o'clock extended weather update on 11Alive Plus. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next on 11Alive News at 11 o'clock tonight. Or if you're heading off to bed, check out Chesley McNeil tomorrow morning from 4:30 to 7 on 11Alive, giving you your forecast, how cold it is, what those wind chills are for the bus stop, and looking ahead to that weekend forecast. We'll see you then.